Give me a countdown. Good morning, church. It's a privilege for me to come before you on this ending of Black History Month. I come to you with the topic, What Hath God Wrought? It's taken from Numbers 23:23. It says, For there is no spell against Jacob or deviation against Israel. No. Can we start over? Let me start over. Let me start. Yeah. Good morning, church. I just want to congratulate you for enduring and for the end of Black History Month. Today, I end Black History with the topic, What Hath God Wrought? Taken from Numbers 23:23, which says, For there is no spell against Israel, or deviation against Israel. It now must be said of Jacob and of Israel, Oh, what hath God done? The text says no spell, which means to most of us, when we say spell, we're talking about voodoo or obia. In other words, there is no voodoo or obia that can be brought against the sons of Jacob or against Israel. And when you're disappointed, you'll come back, what has God done? What has God wrought is an elaborate embellishment of joy or disappointment in events attributed to God. Numbers 23:23 is the final analysis to event occurrence attributed to God. The pages before me is listed 3 traditional group of people associated with this text. The first one is what is God wrought is officially documented by Morris, the official code of Morse code, transmitted in the United States, May 24th, 1844. It officially opened the telegraph line between Baltimore and Washington. Those of you with a cell phone know the rest of the story, how it ended. The rest of my time will be spent in eastern Mesopotamia, which is today's Kuwait and Iraq. And if you will give me some indulgence here, I will try and bring this event to life. The sound of the drum was non-stop. The young men were playing boom, 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 boom. The ground was swelling. It was the eye of the tiger. The young men were singing, Ain't no stopping us now. We on the move. King Bela was nervous, so he had to do some research. He called on his advisors, and the answers came in Numbers 22. The advisors advised him that 40 years earlier, the sons of Jacob had stood up to their Egyptian masters and got their freedom. God told him to head to Canaan, but it did not go well. It did not go quite as planned. After 40 years, everyone had forgotten them. But now, they were a force out of the desert, and Canaan was in their sight. Now, on the plains of Moab, along the Jordan River, the sons of Jacob were led by a cloud, a large cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. The drums were loud non-stop. Boom, 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 Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. They knocked off the great Amalekite army, and nothing was going to stop them. Numbers 22:5 says, the Moabites were scared. Verse 4, they thought the son of Jacob was going to lick them up and everything around them. They were next. So King Balaam consulted his national security advisors, and the conclusion was, we cannot win. Our best option was to fight fire with fire. Go get one of God's anointed, and maybe we'll have a chance. So, the word came back. It was all over Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Their confidence is only temporary. It's fleeting. It won't last. They're just a nomad tribe who had been the laughing stock for the last 40 years. Gone was the confidence. What was the confidence of their ancestor, the 17-year-old Joseph, who 400 years earlier was strong enough of mind to say, how can I do this wicked thing and sin against my God? He was not a slave. He had pride, confidence, self-assurance. He was a slave in body, but in mind he was free. Now, 400 years has taken its toll on his grandchildren. They were free, but they had the mind of a slave. It's hard work to work with people with a slave mentality. In young babies, they call it failure to thrive. You see, when a baby is born, sometimes the mother goes through something called postpartum depression. And there's no bonding between the mother and child. And so the child refuses to eat. And therefore, they do not do well. So that's the mentality of a free man with a slave mentality. It got so bad that word was that their famous leader Moses has run off. At least nobody could find him. Word is even their God had abandoned them. According to Numbers 14:30 says, God said, surely none of you will enter the land which I promised your father, except for Joshua and Caleb. Anyone 20 years and older will die and will not enter into my rest. They can be had, was the advisor's advice. They were broken once, they can be broken again. So, the king decided to try sabotage. The same tactic that was used on the 16th Street Baptist Church that was bombed by white supremacists in September 15, 1963. There, 4 young girls on their way to Sunday school lost their life in what was thought to be a place of safety. Sabotage is nothing new. What has God what? It's always the question when we're hit with calamity. What has God gotten us into? 3 young girls was going to church to play, to pray, to serve their God, and their life was snuffed out. The prophet Balaam was not an Israelite. But somehow serving God was his calling. The Old Testament in Numbers 22-24 describe him as a divine intercessor. And the king of Moab, Balak, decided to ask him to mediate on their behalf. The sons of Jacob had encamped around the plain of Moab. We find Balaam, the prophet of the Lord, before daybreak. The morning was cool and clear. Balaam was alone, sitting on a rock, dragging his feet in the sand. Periodically, he would slap himself in the head. The question on his mind was, how could this once a lifetime opportunity pass through my finger? It should be an easy street by now. Famous with respect and fame. But it was not to be. one minute, he was the devoted advisor to a king, riding the king's chariot, eating the king's meal. And now he was a dejected man. He blew it. Instead, he was sitting on the riverbed. He was not rolling in his bed with gold and silver, but instead sitting on a cold rock, rubbing his toes with the mud. Verse 6, the prophet was not a Jew. He was a fellow countryman. At his front door was emissaries of the king, FBI, CIA if you mean. The young king need you. You are the man of the hour. They said to Balaam, if you just talk to your God for us, you will earn respect, fame. Numbers 22:8. Balaam decided to ask God. God said no. Numbers, verse 9-13. The king decided to up the ante. He decided to bring out the big guns. So, the next day came the national security advisor, the security defense, the joint chief of staff. Verse 15-19 says, they impressed on him that the time was now. They needed him. So Balaam decided to find a way. He went back to God. And after pestering God over and over, God gave him an opening. God says, you can go, but only under one condition. Patriarch and prophet says, God gave him the condition, but the condition was not met. Balaam went anyway. He was not disobedient to God. God was not happy. Numbers 22:21-29. On his way, the donkey bumped his leg against the wall. He slapped the donkey and kept going. The donkey slapped his head again and tried to turn back. Balaam was upset and tried slapping the donkey again. The donkey started to talk, and he started talking back to the donkey. Balaam said, are you making me look bad in front of the king's advisors? The donkey shook his head and said, I have served you faithfully over the years, and now you're trying to kill me. Verse 21 and 33. The point of the story is God's. It is God's. It's God's decision what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's God's decision how to use his anointed, when and how. Not his prophet, not how long you pray. Balaam did not know this. The story in 2 Peter 2:15 says, they left and went straight and wandered and followed the way of Balaam's son, who loved their wages over their wickedness. Balaam's love for money was tough to ignore. And the donkey pointed this out to him. A lot of us fall prey to the desire to get rich. And in this case, you are no different from Balaam. The pride, the greed, the desire to get rich was overwhelming. 2, the cloud, the vision to see God's leadership was nil. The most important point was our problem. Jeremiah 29:3 said, seek the Lord with all your hearts. Balaam did not. Balaam sought God, but only on his term. That was not enough for God. Balaam only pretended to serve God. God was in charge. God is always the driving force, not our attitude. What looked like disobedience by Balaam was disloyalty. He kept going to God only until he get what he wanted. Balaam did not understand what the donkey understood. God is in charge. Numbers 22 and 29 says, Balaam speared and would have killed the donkey. The donkey was being beaten because of his vision. The donkey could see the truth, but Balaam could not. What has God's rod? God demands disobedience. Despite how long it takes. It may take 40 years, 400 years, but God's will stand. Hold on, little flock. It may take time. It's been over a generation since you have been here. 30 years, if you will. It will be New Life's anniversary. But do not give up. God says, hold on, little flock, because it is with my good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Thank you.